Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another great review for you from the brand Baltic. They're a French micro brand aiming to offer timeless pieces of the highest quality for fair prices. These are designed, assembled, and adjusted all in France, which is great. And in terms of the type of watch, I'd consider this an everyday dress watch. Some key common characteristics and design language, you're looking for something that you can wear every day that dresses up well. You're of course going to want that clean, classic, minimalist design and something that is sensibly sized. This is the MR01 in silver, MR as in micro rotor. And this is a classic yet modern watch designed in an elegant and discreet style to offer a timepiece that combines pure unisex aesthetic along with multiple levels of finishing. You can get this for 545 euro, or roughly about 537 something dollars, depending on the current exchange rate. The pre-order is open from October 13th through the 23rd, and then these will deliver by 2023. And I know some of you are probably watching this after the pre-order ended, but I did want to make sure to highlight this model because it's highly desirable and it's cool that they're doing a pre-order. So instead of everybody waiting for a drop and then hoping to get one and add it to their cart and may not get one, they left it open to where, hey, you put in the demand and they will fulfill it. So I had to give kudos to Baltic for that. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, what a stunner this is. And I have to say, for 36 millimeters, this is probably the best wearing 36 millimeter watch I've ever experienced. It just has a certain magic about it in the way that it did its proportions, whether it be the dial and that layout, or the bezel ratio, or just the general wideness of the lugs. There's just something that really is pretty magical that they've been able to put together with this model. And man, look at that dial. It's just gorgeous. And let's flip it over. Oh, yes, guys. Check that out. That is just so beautifully done. It's insane that you're able to get this for around 500 bucks. It is well designed and well executed, and really even just well appointed in terms of its spec. So into those specs: 36 millimeters in diameter, 10.2 millimeters thick, and that is including the crystal. But without the crystal, it's only 8 millimeters. So you can tell, obviously, because of the way that they did this nice box domed sapphire, it does help kind of compartmentalize that height away from just your normal mid case bezel and case back. So really nice from that perspective. Only 44 millimeters lug to lug, which is great. Mostly polished with brushed sides here. So very clean, classic, again, minimalist, non-offensive. There's just so many nice things going on with this watch. Really stunning just to get into the grain and the finishing on this dial. So the crystal itself is a Hesalite plexiglass, which is double domed. I would have preferred a sapphire, but I can't argue with this because clearly people are buying these hand over fist. So sapphire is not a big deal to them, even though it might be a big deal to me. The nice thing about Hesalite is that you can buff it out if you do get any scrapes or scratches, and it's also less prone to shattering, which is nice. And obviously for this type of watch, it's not meant to be an everyday adventure watch. Definitely more to be something you can wear as a versatile dress watch, a dedicated dress watch at that. So with that regard, you don't necessarily need sapphire, the toughness that comes along with it, because generally the use case for this is just going to be a bit of a less tough environment. So we get now to the bezel. You can see great bezel ratio on there, just all polished, nice and flat. We also do have a nice push-pull crown, all polished, and you can see the brushing on the satin, very nice on the sides of the case there. And then very nice. Oh, look at this. It's so dusty in here. Let's go ahead and knock some of that off. Oh, here's a cool little feature. Check this out, guys. You can see the small print there from Baltic, giving you some details about the watch, which I thought was really neat when I saw it. It's just those little types of details that I appreciate, right? And it keeps text off of the dial, and you repurpose it in a place that is really cool and, signature to their brand. Oh my gosh, check that out. Such excellent finishing for the price. Again, about $500, guys. Micro rotor movement. Look at all the nice finishing on all of these plates. Just very, very handsome and super well done. So I dig that. Appreciate it very much. Now, this movement, some details about it, is that it does sweep at 4 hertz, which is great. So that's 28,800 vibrations per hour. It has a 42-hour power reserve, and it's actually regulated to 5 positions. So it is going to perform better than, your typical unregulated movement that would be using this same one. This is the automatic Hangzhou, I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sure, micro rotor Cal 5000A. So this is a Chinese movement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. And just because something's a Swiss movement or a Japanese movement, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. So I would say definitely, you have to look at the execution. It's not necessarily where it's built, it's how it's built. So this one is, there's definitely a clear amount of effort that's gone into this, which I can appreciate. Especially as a collector myself and somebody who has multiple watches, and a lot of them. It's nice to have things that make this watch feel like it stands out and is different than every other watch that I have. And I'm not much of a dress watch guy, but I have to say I'm really taken by this watch. A lot of that has to do with this dial. I love this kind of asymmetrical layout with the small seconds there kind of offset in between the 6 and the 9. And you get that beautiful grain texture on the silver, and then you also get this great guilloche subdial, as well as a circular brush outer minute track, which is great as well. So you're getting a lot of different finishes, a lot of different textures there that all kind of come together. And then you can see, of course, those beautiful applied Breguet numerals. There's just something very timeless about it. It's very classic, and yes, it's a very specific look because because of the style, and it's just you don't see it a lot. But I think they did it in like this really nice harmonious design to where it doesn't clash, it doesn't shout, it's all just very tidy, and it feels like it belongs, and it all comes together really well. You're getting 20 millimeter lugs. Also, the water resistance on here is 3 atmospheres or 30 meters. You're getting this navy blue Italian calf leather strap, which is very nice, from Baltic. It is a little short on my wrist, which you guys are going to notice when we get to the wear portion, but it is definitely nicely done. It has a 4 millimeter taper down to 16 millimeters at the buckle, which honestly suits the style here and the aesthetic, having that taper. So really nice and clean. I love the blue. It's nice and dark, and then you can see even contrast. Even though it's not contrasting stitch, it's actually a navy blue stitch. You can see just the way the light plays and how much depth there is to this color, that stitching can still feature kind of a pop to it, as it's contrasting against such a luxurious and luscious kind of deeply colored strap. So I dig that. it's nice. And you know, again, if it was a little bit longer, it could easily be the strap that I just wear this watch with. It does also have an optional beads of rice bracelet, around for an additional €60. So I believe it's the same beads of rice bracelet from the Aquascape, which I have. So I could always swap that on because I have that bracelet there. But honestly, I don't think that aesthetic necessary. I think, you know, obviously the way that they engineered it, it flows well with the design, but I think, you know, aesthetically it doesn't necessarily you know, match. I wouldn't think that I would like to see this watch on a beads of rice bracelet if it did come with one. So happy to see it in this beautiful blue kind of color play option, because that just makes it very versatile. So with that said, let's actually get it on wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see, even on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears really, really well. And I'd say 36 millimeters is typically outside of my comfort zone. Even while the watch is up close to the lens here, you're getting a little lens distortion, and it's going to appear larger. You can see that it is nicely centered and seated on the wrist. I think a lot of that has to do with those 20 millimeter lugs and those relatively wide shoulders. So this really does give me hope that other 36 millimeter watches might fit me well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think it looks great. I'd say my other smallest watch that I wear comfortably, you know, it's not a 36, this is even smaller than that, is a 37. My King Seiko reimagining. So I really do love that watch, and this one, it gives me, I mean, that's an expensive watch compared to this Baltic. And this gives me a lot of those similar vibes in terms of it being very, you know, vintage, very clean, classic aesthetic there, and being even versatile enough to be, again, although it has all the right pieces to be a dedicated dress watch, it also is versatile enough to be something you could wear as a daily wear, which is something I love, especially when you think that, hey, I can on a daily basis have this much style on my wrist. I think that's really cool, guys. Check that out. But let's go ahead and tighten the frame up here so we can get a closer look without getting a distorted look on how this lays on my wrist. Nice and flat, guys. The profile, the way everything plays. I guess the word, like I said earlier, is harmony. This is a very harmonious design. It has all these really great elements, some of them very ornate, and everything just flows together and comes together in a way that just feels very cohesive. And that dial, I mean, it's just a pale silver dial, but it's not just a pale silver dial. It has so much richness to it, and I really like that. I will say, in terms of, you know, critique-wise, it still has some of the things you would associate with a dressy watch, especially a smaller dressy watch, which means in terms of shock resistance and even just like the sound of it on your wrist, it does. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I tried to put it near the old microphone there, but there is a little bit of rotor whir that's there, and let's say if you were to tap on it, there's a bit of a jingly type of sound to it, so you can tell that there's something. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and try to do it closer here. So if you can hear that, it's very faint. It's nothing crazy, but you know, although this looks like $1 million, I do want to set that you know, realistic understanding there that at the end of the day, this is a $500 watch, and it is still a dressy watch. So if you were to get a very small sports watch, it's going to feel a lot more solid. Just by the nature of the way it's built, a small diver's watch, they're going to feel more solid. This, at the end of the day, is a dress watch, so it's going to have some, you know, that thinness to it, which means there's going to be less dampening in terms of sounds when it comes to that movement and the case. But with that said, although there's no lume, we'll get into some low light transition and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and add the lights here. And since there is no loom, I already have my handy off-camera lighting ready. One thing I really like to do is work in some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be coming in and out of vehicles, you know, walking underneath overhangs, spending time underneath the shade of a tree, or maybe within your favorite automobile. So it's nice to see what these colors, finishes, and textures render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting here, high contrast, that would typically expose any type of production defects. But you can see here the polish. The only thing that's wrong with it is the oils from my fingertips, and you know, that beautiful brushing is handling the light and playing with it quite uniformly. But one thing you really do get to enjoy is this dial, and look at the contrast. You would think a silver on silver, you know, a high polished indice and handset dial would be not this legible, right? Because it's all a similar color play, but you can see, because of the texture, because of the depth, the way that these indices are going to reflect is going to pretty much always contrast against the way that the dial is going to reflect light, whether it's holding the light, whether it's reflecting it back, whether it's reflecting off of something in the room. You can see it does remain relatively legible, which is pretty cool. I'd say like maybe over here you can somewhat wash it out in this little area, but even then you just get back to it and you're back at being able to kind of read everything again. So very cool. I like that. Very well thought out. It's something, even though it doesn't have loom for you know, legibility in darkness, the low light legibility is still pretty competitive, especially when you think about a dress watch, which may normally just have a couple of, you know, just a painted index, versus here you're going to get these great reflective indices that are, one, they're relatively large so you can see them, but the shape that they are allows them to play with light in a lot of different ways that will contrast away from the dial. So very cool. Okay guys, closing thoughts. For me, on the wrist, classic dress watch proportions, nice thin silhouette, does help it lay flat and prevent an undersized feel or appearance. While it may be the best fitting 36mm watch I've ever worn on my 7.5-inch wrist as well. So like, there's so many things that come together for this watch, and I can see why it is so desirable. In terms of model variants, it's also available in either a salmon or a blue dial option with your choice of strap or bracelet. In terms of comparable models, although there are, I'd say, maybe a few other micro brands that are using this same type of movement, Baltic is the only one who've really managed to create a cult classic. These sell for like up to $2,000 on the used market, which is pretty wild. $500 watch that is so desirable and so scarce that people are willing to pay $2,000 for it. So that tells you in terms of the quality, right? Some people are okay spending that much more money on this watch, which is cool, but even cooler that you can still get it at retail. You just have to pay attention, sign up for, you know, those newsletters, go onto their site, follow their social media accounts, and you could have an opportunity to be wearing this, and it is cool. It's a very desirable watch that gives you something that you know, physically and visually just punches so far above its weight, and then you add in the value proposition, and it's pretty wild. So bottom line for me on this one, if you have a chance to pick one of these up, you won't be disappointed. And in the rare chance or case that you are disappointed, you can easily sell it for double or triple or quadruple what you paid. And that is a luxury that is normally reserved for an actual luxury timepiece. So that, again, it just says a lot about this brand, about this model, and just how great it is. It's, again, it's not the perfect watch by any means, but it just does so much, and it just does it all really, really well. So with that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.